The wind tore across the jagged cliffs, throwing grit and cold against Leora's face as she clutched her toolkit to her chest. The warning lights of the crash supply shuttle blinked weakly behind her, but her attention was fixed on the sound that made her stomach twist, low, rolling thuds that shook the ground with each beat. Something huge was moving out there. She froze, trying to see through the swirling fog. At first she thought it was a landslide or maybe one of the planet's massive native beasts, but then the fog shifted, revealing it. A war dragon. Its scales were black as midnight, jagged and chipped as if each one had survived countless battles. Its wings, folded tight against its body, thumped against the wind like war drums. But it wasn't the size that made Leora's heart race. It was the sheer ferocity in its glowing amber eyes. Every muscle under that armor of scales was coiled like a spring ready to snap. She had seen dragons in the Holovids back on Earth. This was nothing like the simulations. This was alive. And angry. Before she could think, the dragon lunged. Not at her, but at a group of miners who had stumbled onto the plateau moments before. Rocks flew, claws gouged the earth, and the miners scattered, screaming. Leora's chest tightened as she saw one of them get pinned under the dragon's tail. Without thinking, she sprinted forward, ignoring the howling wind. She reached the miner and yanked him free just as the dragon reared, letting out a roar that rattled her bones. The sound carried pain as well as power, like it was more than just a warning. It was a story of battles, loss, and rage. Leora's hands shook as she helped the miner to his feet. Go. Run, she shouted, her voice almost lost in the roar. They stumbled back toward the wrecked shuttle. And then something impossible happened. The dragon stopped. Its head tilted almost like it was listening. Its gaze fixed on Leora, unblinking, assessing. Her stomach dropped. Why her? She hadn't touched it, threatened it, or done anything but save someone else. The ground beneath the dragon's claws cracked with its weight. Sparks flew where the tips dug into the metal of the wreckage. It shifted slightly and the miner screamed, but Leora didn't move. She could feel the heat of its rage, the power that could crush her in an instant, but something in her chest rose higher than fear, curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, a sliver of understanding. Her mind raced. Every instinct screamed to run. Every instinct screamed to hide. But she couldn't leave the miner, or whatever else might come. And something told her this dragon wasn't mindless. It had intelligence. Judgment. Bang. Leora took a slow step forward. Then another. She kept her hands visible, showing she carried nothing threatening, though every nerve in her body was screaming. Her fingers brushed her toolkit, the small human-made devices she had built to repair ships, to solve problems, to survive. She felt the weight of them, a reminder that humans could make a difference even against creatures this colossal. The dragon lowered its head, closer to the ground, its nostrils flaring, its eyes burning like molten gold. Leora froze again. Its wing twitched, revealing scars across the leathery skin, long and jagged, some deep enough that she could see a faint glow pulsing from beneath the wound. This dragon had been hurt. Repeatedly. And survived. Her heart thumped faster. She had never faced anything like this. And yet, in that moment she felt a strange connection. This wasn't just a wild beast, it was a survivor. And maybe it understood survival the way she did. The wind howled louder, cutting across the plateau, carrying the faint, metallic scent of blood. Leora's hands tightened on the toolkit. Every rational thought screamed for retreat. But the dragon's gaze held hers and she realized she couldn't back down. Not if she wanted to learn why it was here, why it attacked, and why, for some inexplicable reason, it had stopped at her. Tentatively she took another step. Then another. The dragon didn't move, but the scars along its wing twitched as if responding to her presence. She swallowed and a spark of an idea flickered. Maybe, just maybe, this creature could be reached, not with weapons, not with fear, but with understanding. Then, without warning, the dragon lashed its tail toward the cliff edge. Rocks toppled down in a cascade, sending the miners screaming again. Leora ducked instinctively, feeling the vibration through her bones. She knew two things in that instant. First, that she had to act, and second, that the dragon's next move could either end her life or reveal the impossible secret it carried in its scars. She raised her hands slowly, stepping closer, every step a challenge to her fear. And then the wind shifted, carrying a sound that made her blood run cold, a low, almost human-like moan from the dragon itself. It was wounded. It had lived through something no human could imagine. And now, it was waiting for her to decide what kind of human she was. Leora's fingers brushed the edge of her toolkit, her heart hammering. One small, deliberate motion, one act of courage, and everything could change. Then the dragon's eyes flicked toward her hand, and in that instant, something in its massive chest twitched. A spark of recognition maybe or curiosity, she couldn't tell. But it was enough to make Leora realize, this wasn't just survival. This was the start of a bond that no one had dared hope for. And yet, before she could act, the ground trembled violently beneath them, and a deep rumble echoed across the cliffs, not from the dragon but from somewhere deeper, hidden, and ancient. Something else was coming. Her heart skipped a beat. Whatever was behind that rumble, it was bigger than the dragon. The tremor rattled the cliff, sending loose stones skittering across the plateau. Leora's heart pounded as she tried to keep her balance. The miners had frozen in panic, pressed against the wreckage, eyes wide with terror. But Leora couldn't afford to panic, not now. The dragon's gaze stayed locked on her, and she knew the moment to act was slipping fast. She took a steadying breath and stepped closer, holding her toolkit like a shield. The dragon's amber eyes narrowed slightly, but it didn't move away. Its wings twitched, revealing more of the pale, glowing scars that crisscrossed its body. The sight made her stomach tighten. Whoever, or whatever, had inflicted these wounds was unimaginably strong. And if the dragon had survived, maybe she could survive too. Then came the rumble again, louder this time, shaking the plateau like an approaching storm. The miners shrieked and scrambled backward, but Leora forced herself to stand firm. She had no plan yet, only instinct and courage. Her mind raced, get closer. Don't provoke it. Learn what it wants. A shadow moved across the fog, massive and low, like a dark wave sliding over the rocks. The dragon stiffened, its tail lashing, wings stretching slightly. Leora's pulse hit her throat. The rumble wasn't random. Something alive was coming, and the dragon had noticed it first. That alone told her this creature, the war dragon, was not just a weapon of war. It was a guardian, a survivor, and maybe, a protector. The ground shook again, stronger this time, and a deafening roar erupted from below. Leora's ears rang. Rocks tore free from the cliffs, clattering like thunder across the plateau. The miners screamed, some falling to their knees in terror. Leora grabbed one of them, yanking him out of the way just before a boulder slammed into the wreckage. Sparks flew as metal twisted, and she realized their shuttle might collapse at any second. The dragon roared back, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to shake the very air. Leora flinched, but she held her ground. It wasn't attacking her, yet. It was warning the threat below, stay back. She realized that if she wanted to survive this, she had to act with both brains and courage. She scanned the cliff edges, looking for a safe path, and spotted a narrow ledge along the rock face. If she could reach it, she might be able to guide the miners, and maybe even communicate with the dragon indirectly. But moving now would provoke the dragon. Leora's stomach twisted. Every instinct told her that one wrong step and she could die. She took a deep breath, then another. Then she stepped forward slowly, hand extended toward the dragon, not threatening but open. The dragon's massive head lowered slightly, nostrils flaring. Leora could see every detail, jagged scales, the faint glow under its scars, the tension in its muscles. She whispered to herself, "It's okay. I'm not your enemy." The words felt absurdly small against the storm of wind, rocks, and danger, but somehow the dragon understood. One miner started to cry, shivering as he clutched his helmet. Leora shot him a sharp glance. No time for fear. Move now or die. She grabbed his arm and pulled him along the ledge, stepping carefully while keeping her eyes on the dragon. Its wings twitched, but it didn't strike. Instead, it shifted slightly, almost as if to guide them away from the edge. Then the rumble came again and Leora froze. From below, a massive shadow emerged through the fog, a hulking creature, quadrupedal, with armored plates and glowing eyes that burned like hot coals. Its roar split the air, and Leora felt the vibration in her chest. This was no ordinary predator. This was a leviathan bigger than the dragon, and it was heading straight for them. The dragon hissed, flames flickering along its jaw, its body tensing like a bowstring. Leora's mind snapped into focus. She had to make a decision: flee, fight, or find a way to show the dragon she could help. Fear clawed at her chest, but something deeper, determination, pushed her forward. She darted closer to the dragon, holding her hands out, her fingers brushing the edge of one glowing scar. The dragon flinched at first, but then it didn't pull away. Leora realized she had broken the first barrier. It allowed her near. She felt the heat radiating from its body, the power it could unleash, and still she didn't step back. The leviathan's roar shook the ground, and the dragon responded in kind, wings unfurling and claws digging into the plateau. Leora glanced at the miners. "Follow me," she shouted. "Stay close to me and the dragon." Panic surged in their eyes, but the urgency in her voice sparked obedience. They moved carefully, hurtling toward the ledge, every step a gamble between safety and death. Suddenly, a boulder tore free from the cliff above, hurtling straight for Leora. Without thinking, she grabbed the nearest miner and dove sideways, rolling to safety just as the rock slammed into the ledge behind them. Sparks and dust filled the air. She coughed, and when she opened her eyes, the dragon was staring directly at her again. Its roar was softer now, almost approving. For the first time she felt a connection forming, a fragile, tense understanding between human and beast. She didn't know if the dragon trusted her yet, but it had stopped attacking. It had chosen to act, not out of blind rage but with awareness. And that small choice, that spark of trust, gave her the courage to keep moving. But just as she started guiding the miners along the ledge, a sharp crack echoed through the cliffside. Something above them shifted. Rocks tumbled. The ledge trembled beneath their feet. Leora's heart froze. The Leviathan wasn't the only threat. Something bigger, higher, and faster was about to fall, and if they weren't careful, the plateau itself might become a trap. Her fingers brushed the dragon's scar again. Its eye flickered with a strange, almost human recognition. Leora knew one thing with terrifying clarity: the battle wasn't over. It was only escalating. And the next move, by her, the dragon or the unknown danger above, could decide who survived. The wind howled. Dust blinded her. The dragon shifted its wings again. And from somewhere deep in the fog, a low, guttural growl promised that the danger was far from done. Leora's lungs burned as she pressed herself and the miners against the jagged cliff wall. The ledge shook violently, a thin ribbon of rock barely holding their weight. Above, stones tumbled down like hail. Below, the Leviathan roared, muscles rippling under armored plates, eyes glowing with relentless hunger. And between them, the war dragon crouched, its wings folded but ready, every scar along its body twitching like a story waiting to be told. Her heart pounded. She had survived the first rush of danger. She had guided the miners to relative safety. But now she realized survival wasn't enough. To survive this, she had to understand the dragon. She had to reach it. Slowly, she stepped closer, eyes fixed on the largest scar along its wing, a deep, jagged line that glowed faintly with bioluminescence. Every human instinct screamed to stay back. This could kill you. This is a war creature. It can crush you in an instant. But curiosity, determination, and something more, empathy, pushed her forward. She raised her hand, trembling, and brushed the edge of the scar. The dragon flinched at first, then froze, its amber eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the distant roar of the Leviathan. The scar pulsed under her touch, almost like it was alive. Leora felt a jolt run up her arm. And then, something unbelievable happened. The dragon lowered its head slowly, closer to the ledge. Its hot breath washed over her, carrying the scent of ash and iron, and she realized the scars were not just wounds, they were warnings, messages carved into its body. Whoever had hurt it had left marks meant to be remembered. Her mind raced. This dragon isn't just fierce. It's a survivor, a warrior, a being that remembers every battle, every betrayal. And somehow, it had chosen to let her close. That choice, a conscious, deliberate choice, struck her deeper than any weapon ever could. Humans, fragile and small, had made a difference. Here now she was proof. One miner let out a shaky laugh. What are you doing?" he whispered. "Shoo," Leora hissed. "Just watch." Her fingers hovered over another scar, smaller but sharper, crossing the dragon's flank. She let her hand brush it lightly, and the dragon's wings twitched again. There was a soft, almost mournful sound, a groan, a low, almost human-like sigh. Leora froze. This was no random creature. It was communicating, in its own way, pain and memory and perhaps, trust. The Leviathan's roar shattered the moment, shaking the cliff. Rocks tumbled down, and a part of the ledge cracked under the miner's feet. Leora grabbed one, yanking him back just as the edge split. The dragon leapt forward with terrifying grace, landing between the miners and the edge, claws digging in to hold the thin rock together. Its roar was deafening, full of rage and protection. Leora realized the impossible. It was defending them. Her mind spun. Why would a creature like this protect humans? And then a thought struck her. Maybe it recognized something in her. Something uniquely human. Empathy. Courage. Determination. The very things humans were often underestimated for, but which, here, mattered more than size or strength. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to move closer to the dragon's head. Its eyes followed her every step. She reached out, her fingers hovering just above the dragon's snout. The warmth of its scales was almost comforting, but she knew one wrong move could end everything. You're hurt," she whispered, realizing she could feel the story embedded in each scar. Pain, fear, and survival all intertwined. And yet, you survived. You fought, and you kept going. Her hand trembled, but she rested it lightly on the dragon's snout. Its amber eyes softened, blinking slowly. Then the pattern broke. The Leviathan below let out a low, rumbling growl and began climbing the cliff with impossible speed. Leora froze. There was no way they could outrun it. The ledge was unstable. The miners were terrified. The dragon shifted its massive body, wings twitching. Its head dipped closer, nudging Leora's hand. She understood instantly, this was a choice. Right. Not literally yet, but a bond, a trust, a connection. She had earned it, and if she acted now, maybe they could survive the next attack. One of the miners gasped. Are you crazy? That thing will crush you." Leora didn't answer. She felt a surge of clarity. The dragon had survived impossible odds. Humans survived impossible odds too, every day. She could guide it. She could help. And maybe, together, they could face what was coming. The cliff shuddered again, and the Leviathan's glowing eyes pierced the fog. It wasn't just chasing them, it was hunting them. Every instinct screamed danger. Leora clenched her toolkit, scanning the ledge for anything to aid them. Loose rocks. A twisted metal beam from the shuttle. Anything to give leverage. The dragon's wing twitched under her touch, as if acknowledging the unspoken plan forming between them. Its tail lashed at the edge, knocking debris toward the Leviathan, slowing its advance. Leora realized something extraordinary: she could strategize with this creature. Together, human intelligence and dragon strength. A boulder fell directly toward them and she shouted, "Duck!" The miners dove aside just as the dragon's claw struck it midair, sending fragments tumbling down the cliff to crash harmlessly below. A small victory, but enough to prove it could work. Her hand still on its snout, Leora felt the warmth of trust, something rare and fragile but undeniable. And then she noticed it, a faint glow inside one of the deepest scars, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. She leaned closer, curiosity igniting. That glow, it was artificial. Someone had done this intentionally. Someone had wounded it, yes, but also experimented. Her heart froze. Whoever did this wasn't finished. And the Leviathan wasn't the only danger. The cliff trembled again. Dust choked the air. And in the faint light of the dragon's glowing scars, Leora realized, this was bigger than just survival. Much bigger. She swallowed hard. The choice she made next, touch deeper, trust fully, act decisively, would decide everything. And as the Leviathan lunged again, faster than her eyes could track, the dragon let out a roar that shook the plateau. Leora felt a spark of hope and fear and awe, all at once. But then, from the fog behind, a shadow shifted. Not the Leviathan. Something else. Something watching. Something waiting. Her pulse spiked. Whatever it was, it had been waiting for her. The ledge trembled beneath them. Leora's fingers pressed against the dragon's snout, and she felt the steady pulse of its scars beneath her touch. The Leviathan below had stopped for a moment, its glowing eyes scanning the plateau, sensing the connection forming between human and dragon. Leora's heart raced. One wrong move now and they'd all fall into the abyss, or worse. She drew a sharp breath. The dragon shifted its massive body closer to the cliff edge, wings spread wide. Its amber eyes flicked toward hers. She understood immediately, this was no longer just survival. They had to fight together or none of them would leave the plateau alive. "Stay close," she shouted to the miners, keeping her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. They hesitated, frozen by fear, but her gaze hardened. "Do it. Move now or die here." Slowly they shuffled toward the dragon, trusting her instinct more than their own senses. The Leviathan crouched low, coiling like a spring. Then it lunged, claws tearing into the rock, jaw snapping wide. Leora's stomach sank, but before she could react, the dragon leapt. Its wings beat the air with earth-shattering force, propelling it upward. Leora barely held on to the edge of its jaw, gripping with every ounce of strength. The miners followed the narrow ledge behind them, dodging falling debris, each step a dance with death. Leora felt the dragon's energy beneath her hands, raw power honed by countless battles, yet tempered now by the faint trust she had earned. It roared, and the sound rattled her bones, shaking the cliff and the Leviathan alike. The Leviathan's leap was staggering. It landed heavily, sending the ledge vibrating. Rocks tumbled down the cliffside. Leora's hands slipped once, then she gritted her teeth and grabbed again, pulling herself up. The dragon's glowing scars pulsed under her touch, almost like a heartbeat syncing with hers. She realized something vital. She had to guide it, not just ride it. They had to be a team. Now, she shouted, pointing toward the narrow crevice in the cliff wall. The dragon seemed to understand. Its wings flared and it kicked off the ledge, soaring upward. The miners sprinted along the ledge as rocks crashed down behind them, the ground shaking with the Leviathan's fury. Leora scanned the cliff above. A massive boulder, loosened by the earlier tremors, hung suspended, threatening to crush them all. Her mind raced. We can't outrun everything. We have to fight smart. She noticed the twisted remains of the shuttle's cargo crates, scattered along the ledge. Metal beams, energy cells, anything could become a weapon. A plan formed in an instant. They could use the falling debris, the dragon's strength, and the narrow cliff to their advantage. Push the crates, she yelled to the miners. They hesitated, then heaved the heavy metal toward the cliff's edge. The dragon's claws tore into the ground, creating small avalanches that sent rocks and debris cascading down. The Leviathan staggered under the combined assault. Leora's heart raced. This was working. They were outsmarting it. The dragon's tail lashed, knocking a massive boulder directly into the Leviathan's path. The monster roared in frustration, stumbling as it tried to regain footing. Leora climbed higher along the dragon's wing, keeping her hands on the glowing scars. Each pulse seemed to guide her, almost like the dragon was communicating. Now, strike. Hold tight, she shouted as the dragon dove toward a narrower cliff edge, leading the Leviathan into a trap. The plateau's natural chasms yawned like jaws, and Leora realized the Leviathan had nowhere to go. Its glowing eyes flicked toward her, recognizing the plan, but it was too late. The dragon flared its wings, creating a gust that sent loose rock raining down. The Leviathan staggered, slipping closer to the edge. Leora's pulse pounded. She reached toward the dragon's deepest scar, the one glowing brightest. The heat beneath her fingers surged, and she felt the dragon's raw will, its intelligence, its trust in her. This wasn't just instinct anymore, it was a bond. She whispered, "Together." The dragon responded with a roar that echoed across the cliffs, shaking loose more debris toward the Leviathan. The monster roared, teetering on the edge. Leora's eyes widened. One push, one misstep, and it could fall, or crush them all. She adjusted her grip on the dragon's snout, using her small human strength to guide its head slightly. The dragon obeyed, nudging a massive shard of metal from the shuttle's wreckage with its claw. It struck the Leviathan with a metallic clang, throwing it off balance. The Leviathan let out a final ear-splitting roar as it toppled backward, plummeting into the abyss below. Dust and rock rained down, the roar echoing into silence. Leora sank against the dragon's warm scales, shaking but exhilarated. She had done it. Together they had survived. For a moment, nothing moved but the wind and the settling dust. Leora looked into the dragon's amber eyes and felt something profound. A shared understanding, a recognition that humans could be brave, clever, and compassionate even against impossible odds. She had earned its trust. They had won this battle together. But the plateau was still unstable. Loose rocks tumbled. The ledge creaked under their weight. And then Leora noticed it, a faint glow emanating from deeper within the cliff, far beyond the dragon's scars, pulsing in rhythmic beats. It was not part of the dragon. Something else had been watching, waiting, and feeding from the chaos. Her stomach sank. The Leviathan was gone, yes, but whatever had caused the dragon's scars, whatever had wounded it and set these events in motion, was still out there. Leora's pulse quickened. The cliff trembled again, a subtle, warning pulse beneath her feet. She swallowed hard and pressed her hand against the dragon's snout once more. "We're not done," she whispered. The dragon's wings twitched in agreement, and she felt that same surge of connection, the heartbeat of a survivor recognizing another. Then, from the shadows of the cliff's depths, a low rumble echoed, not the Leviathan's roar, not the wind, but something deeper, ancient, and intelligent. Something that had been waiting for them, watching their every move. Leora's eyes widened. She realized with a shiver, the fight wasn't over. It had only escalated. And the next challenge would test not just her courage, but the bond she had forged with a creature no one had ever dared approach. The dragon lowered its massive head toward her hand again as if asking, "Are you ready?" She nodded, heart pounding. "Yes. Whatever comes next, we face it together." And somewhere deep in the cliff, the glow pulsed faster, brighter, hinting at a danger, and a secret, far larger than anything they had yet imagined. The wind had finally calmed, but the plateau was still littered with shattered rocks and twisted metal. Leora pressed her hands against the dragon's glowing scars, feeling warmth pulsing beneath her fingers. She could feel the rhythm of its heartbeat now, not just power but a slow, steady pulse that mirrored her own. Somehow, against every impossible odds, they had survived. The miners sat huddled behind a collapsed section of the shuttle, trembling but alive. Leora looked at them and smiled weakly. We're okay, she said, though the words felt small compared to the enormity of what had just happened. Each one of them had stared death in the face and lived. And she realized that even in the terror, the humans had shown the courage, intelligence, and determination that the dragon had come to respect. The war dragon lowered its massive head closer, amber eyes softening, almost like it was speaking without words. Leora swallowed hard and placed both hands on its snout. She could feel its pain, its scars, and now, its trust. A connection had been forged that no force in the galaxy could break. It had chosen her. A fragile, impossible bond between human and dragon had formed, and in that moment, Leora understood something profound. Humanity's strength was not just in their tools or weapons, but in their courage, compassion, and resilience. She took a careful step closer to the dragon, feeling the weight of its massive body beneath the wind and the scars. "You survived everything," she whispered. "But you don't have to be alone anymore." The dragon's amber eyes blinked slowly, and for the first time, it lowered a wing slightly, inviting her closer. Leora carefully stepped onto its foreleg, then the back, feeling the scales shift beneath her feet. The miners gasped, unsure whether she was brave or foolish. She didn't care. She was human, small, fragile, but she had earned her place here, beside a creature that had been thought untouchable. Her courage mattered. Her heart mattered. And now she realized so did her connection. The dragon exhaled, flames flickering harmlessly across the rocks, a warning to anything that might still be lurking below. And then the glow from its scars pulsed brighter, sending a soft, rhythmic light across the cliff. Leora felt a strange sense of clarity. Every scar, every wound, told a story of survival, of battles fought and lost, and of lessons learned. She traced the deepest ones lightly with her fingertips, feeling the ancient pain that had lingered too long, and the first spark of healing that she now represented. One of the miners finally found his voice. She's talking to it," he said, eyes wide. "I've never seen anything like this." Leora smiled faintly, keeping her hands on the dragon. "Not talking," she said softly. "Understanding. That's what matters." She glanced at the ledge, at the jagged drop below, and then back at the glowing scars. This dragon isn't just a weapon. It's proof that humans can make a difference, even against the impossible. The plateau was quiet now, the immediate threats gone. The Leviathan had fallen. The rocks had settled. But Leora's eyes caught the faint glow deeper in the cliff, pulsing in slow, deliberate beats. The one that had been watching them from the shadows. She knew instinctively that it wasn't neutral. It was intelligent. It was waiting. And it was far larger, far older, and far more dangerous than anything they had faced so far. Her pulse quickened. The dragon stiffened beside her, sensing the same thing. Its scars pulsed in response, a silent warning that this bond, her bond with the creature, would be tested again. Leora swallowed hard and pressed her forehead against the dragon's massive snout. "Whatever comes next," she whispered, "we face it together." For a brief moment, time seemed to freeze. The wind calmed even further, the clouds above parted, revealing the faint glow of distant stars. The dragon exhaled softly, and the glow of its scars dimmed slightly, settling into a steady, calm rhythm. Leora felt the weight of their survival, the fragile victory that they had earned through courage and trust. She realized humans were small, but their hearts, their determination, and their willingness to face fear, these things mattered more than any scale or claw. A sudden, low vibration beneath their feet reminded her that the plateau was still unstable. She looked down, and the glow deep in the cliff pulsed again, stronger this time. Something was moving. Something alive. And it was bigger than the Leviathan. Bigger than anything she had ever imagined. Her hand brushed the dragon's glowing scars one final time. "We've survived this," she said, voice steady. "But I think the real challenge is still waiting for us." The dragon's wings shifted slightly, as if agreeing, ready to leap into whatever came next. The miners looked at her, awestruck. What do we do?" one whispered. Leora smiled faintly, looking up at the stars. "We keep going," she said. "We survive. We fight. And we do it together." Her eyes flicked back to the glow deeper in the cliff. A mystery remained, something ancient and dangerous, waiting for the right moment to strike. The war dragon gave a low, resonant roar, and Leora felt it reverberate through her chest. The scars pulsed once more and she realized, this bond they had forged, human and dragon, was stronger than any fear. Stronger than any enemy. And it would be tested again. She gritted her teeth, a spark of excitement igniting in her heart. Whatever lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. Humans could shine even against impossible odds. And this dragon, this impossible creature, had chosen her to prove it. From deep within the cliff, a shadow flickered, barely visible, and the glowing pulse accelerated, almost like a heartbeat. Leora's eyes widened. The next threat was coming. And this time it would be bigger, smarter, and far more dangerous. But she wasn't afraid. Not anymore. She had courage, she had trust, and she had a bond with a creature no one else could even approach. And as she looked into the amber eyes of the war dragon, she whispered, "Let's see what comes next." Somewhere deep within the cliff, the glow pulsed faster, signaling that the mystery was far from over. The real journey had only begun. The faint glow in the cliff hints at a far older, more dangerous force, setting the stage for the next adventure, and promising viewers that Leora and the war dragon will face even higher stakes in the coming story.